Well, welcome everybody. Good morning, afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the world you are in. I wanted to welcome you to our very first Gift of Open Source webinar with Amy June. Amy June Heinlein is one of our advocates, our heroes. She's got a really great relationship with the open source community. And when she mentioned presenting some information to our community about making contributions, teaching people how to contribute back to Drupal and WordPress and doing it in a way that makes it accessible for people who are non-developers, we jumped at the chance to have her come in and talk to us. So just a few housekeeping notes. If you will hold your questions until the end. If you're afraid that you're going to forget your question, feel free to put it in chat and we'll come kind of loop back for it later. But I believe that's all we got. So Amy June, go ahead and take it away.
Okay, I'm super excited because in the Drupal community, my favorite part of contributing is helping other people contribute. And I'm not a coder, I'm a developer, but I don't do a whole lot of back-end stuff, but I'm able to participate in the process. And I sometimes forget that other people don't have that same sort of direction. So this first workshop is more Drupal focused, and it's about the non-code ways that we can give back to the community. And there is documentation to give back to the community, but I have a workshop later, I think in 2 weeks, just focused on that. So I'm just going to kind of glean over it this time. Like Katie said, my name is Amy June. I am the community source ambassador at Canopy. I have the luxury of having a job that pays me to give back to open source. So I work both in Drupal and WordPress. I do a lot, but my favorite things that I like to do is I like to organize events because I love to travel and I love going to camps. So what better way to get to know everyone than help with organizing and volunteering. I live in the Bay Area in San Francisco, California. So I really help with the San Francisco Drupal users group and the Bay Area Drupal Camp, Bad Camp. But I like Florida Drupal Camp and Mid Camp. I help out with WordCamp US when that was live. I'm also a member of the community working group, community health team. I'm going to talk about ways that you can help out with them later in the presentation. I am a hospice nurse by trade. So when I got into tech and discovered that people could make accessible websites and applications and digital assets and didn't, it sort of gave me a direction a little bit. And this kind of leads into a little bit of the presentation about following your passions in open source, because accessibility is super important to me. So I help organize a talk with Carrie Fisher and Donna Bungard called Ally Talks, A11Y, where we get together every month and we talk about all things accessibility. And I'm also a core mentor for Drupal contributions. I help out with Drupal cons, and I help mentor folks at local and regional and national events too. And Katie said, I'm a Pantheon Hero. This is a great program. I love it. There's the little blurb, I advocate for the growth, education, and enhancement of the open web and Pantheon. And if you're doing this gift of open source project throughout the month, really look into doing that hero project, because Pantheon gives these little side projects every couple of weeks on ways that you can help the community in forms of documentation and the issue queue. So the more you contribute, the more you learn, and they give some pretty good resources for that. Okay, so why give back to open source? Contributing makes you feel good, the more you give, the better you feel. It's like this little altruistic part. And of course, everyone appreciates your contributions. Everybody has something to give, and you really help move your open source projects closer to perfection. And in Drupal, when you give back, most of the time you get attributed. And so you can really develop some Drupal street cred, like for when you're looking for a job, or say you're an organization and you're looking for talent. You have a profile page. It helps build that resume. And really, bottom line is the more you contribute, the more you learn. I always say that I'm not a coder, but I'm in the issue queue and I'm reviewing things. And every time I get in there, I learn a little bit more. So I actually learn some code by default, you know? So that's something to really think about, is the more you contribute, the more you learn. So what are some of the ways we can give back? And this is just a list, and I'll go over these, but for ADA purposes, I'll read the list for you. We'll go over sharing knowledge, event organization, how to promote the platform, translations and localizations, the different initiatives, and like I said, we're not going to be going over documentation necessarily or the issue queue, because those are for future workshops. This afternoon, I think skip an hour. So it's 9 a.m. here at 11 a.m. So in about an hour and 45 minutes, we'll do a 1,000-foot view of the issue queue. So sharing knowledge. Sharing knowledge with others is a great learning experience. It goes back to the more you give, the more you learn. Not only are you sharing your knowledge, but you're becoming a role model for other people. And there's all sorts of different ways you can share your knowledge. You can speak, you can train, you can give presentations, you can give trainings, different workshops, you can help mentor. You can lead BOFs or participates in BOFs, and BOFs are birds of a feather, where they're not quite presentations, but people get around and talk about things that interest them. And when you share your knowledge, you really can be seen as an authority in your field, you know, again, building up that street cred. And it really does help build your confidence. It's rewarding. There's a feeling of accomplishment. It's definitely career building. And I do want to stress that if you are in a group that's been historically underrepresented in tech, you can be a great role model for people. You know, I already went into these, you know, be seen as an authority in your field. So this is sort of a duplicate slide. So I'm not really gonna talk about this. So sharing the knowledge, you know, I talked about different ways you can do it, and one of them being presentations. But there's lots of different ways you can present your information too. It doesn't have to be, you know, necessarily a 45-minute lecture style talk. You can submit presentations for discussions, you know, where you have a panel of people. You can submit how-tos, you know, you have a favorite module that you like, or you have an initiative that you like and you want to share information. Your talk can be story-based. It can be how open source influenced your relationship with your children. You know, how did you introduce open source at the high school? Anything like that. Case studies are great. Everyone likes to hear what you're doing with Drupal and all the different ways that Drupal are used. And then, you know, say you don't think you know enough to talk for a whole 45 minutes or half an hour. Lightning talks are a great way to get used to talking. You know, you have that module that you really liked, but you think you only have 5 to 10 minutes worth of information. Lightning talks are great, and all sorts of meetups and camps have lightning talks. So where do you find events that you can participate and share your knowledge? There's a few different places. There's Drupal, and there's links to all of these in the slide deck that Katie shared in the chat. Drupal, it's a little antiquated and the RSS feed isn't working quite right, but typically when people enter their events in the Drupal events page, they show up on Drupal. That's groups.drupal.org. But the community is moving away from Drupal and having a more centralized place on Drupal.org. And we have a new page for community/events. And so that's sort of the new central hub. And you can find meetups, you can find training days, you can find workshops, you can find camps, and you can find conferences listed on that community's events page. And this is a good segue into organizing events or volunteering at events. you like to travel, or you want to get to know your community a little bit more, immerse yourself, you don't have to take on a grand role to participate or to contribute back. You can start small. Meetups, they are an informal gathering of folks that are interested in your particular project, in this case, Drupal. And it's really aimed at building local knowledge bases in communities, like the San Francisco Drupal Users Group, we focus on the Bay Area. And camps are a little bit bigger, and those are 1 to 2 to 4 day events, depending on the size of the community that focuses on Drupal. And it brings together people from a larger geographic region. And they're usually extensions of the meetup. You start with the meetup space and it sort of escalates out. And then on the national or global level, there's DrupalCons. DrupalCon, it's a continent level gathering, and historically it's run over the course of 2 or 3 or 4 days, and they're a little bit bigger. They have larger contribution events, more extensive trainings, keynote addresses, and of course all that content delivery. And DrupalCons are organized by professional event planners versus the camps and the meetups, which are usually volunteer and organized based. But those event planners work in conjunction with the Drupal Association. There is a group of folks that meet monthly, and this is a new initiative that came out, I think, about 1.5 years ago, and they're called the Events Organizer Group. They meet the second Thursday monthly via Zoom, but they also have a designated Slack channel. This group of individuals, their goal is to have a centralized hub for knowledge. You don't have to be an existing event organizer to join this group. You can join this group and figure out ways to get involved in your local community, or say you want to start a meetup or a Drupal camp in your area. You can get ideas and spark interest within this group. And they're working on centralized documentation. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. And I find it very inspirational to go, because people will go to a camp, they come back and they report about what worked and what didn't work, what community roles people shared, how did they organize volunteers, what software, what platform they used. So it really is idea sparking. And I know it sounds pretty easy for me to say, well, just start organizing or volunteering, but the roles are pretty accessible. So I want to talk about a few of the roles. For some of the larger camps like Bad Camp, I kind of drew from our roles and responsibility sheets this list. But there's a website, there's website building to do. Say you're good at the front end or the back end, or you just want to help, figure out some custom code for people, jumping in and volunteering on the website's a good idea. An extension of that is helping audit and populate site content on the website, because you have a lot of different groups of people creating content, but we don't want everyone to necessarily have access to the website. So it's nice to have that one centralized content author that sort of brings together and unites everyone's content with a voice. There's marketing. There's all different kinds of marketing. There's the newsletters, there's reaching out to affiliates and that kind of thing. Social media. Do you like to be on social media? Do you, like to share posts? Do you like to create creative content? Lots of folks have lots of camps and meetups have designated people who work in social media to, have that unified voice. And it doesn't have to take a lot. Most camps have schedulers, so you can write content once a week, put it in a scheduler, and be ready to go. There's training coordinators at camps. You don't necessarily have to give the training. You can be the person that helps find people to do trainings at camps. You can look at other camps and talk with people that you work with and see what ideas, what's the trend and what do people want to learn. And you can bring that back and, help coordinate different trainings for your camp. You can help with sessions, and this can entail a lot. You can help with the call for papers, the marketing outreach, to make sure that you have enough outreach for people, so your speakers are diverse, and how do you include everyone in your call for papers? And then there's also voting on sessions, having that that ability to kind of decide what content you want to present at your camp. There's someone that anonymizes sessions, and then other people that vote, and then other people that will reach out once the speakers are selected, and then coordinate with the speakers. So sometimes this session role can take on like 4 or 5 different people working together. You can help with financing. People have to pay for tickets. You have to pay for vendors. You have to pay for food services. Sponsors are doing money. Say you have a knack for organizing finances. There's always a need for people to help with the finances at camp. There's print and swag. Do you like t-shirts? Do you like jackets? Do you want to have a say on what kind of swag you're handing out to camp, to your attendees? That you can help with audio and visual. I know these days it's a little bit different than in-person events, but a camp can have 3 or 4 sessions running concurrently. Having a couple of people help out with that AV, helping speakers, set up before the sessions is a real low entry point for people that want to help out at camps. You can help volunteer coordination because Drupal camps and meetups and conferences really rely on people volunteering, but they need to know what to do. And so sort of having 1 or 2 people, coordinate those volunteers and having tasks for everyone really helps the camp out. Contributions, a lot of camps will have contributions days. So coordinating ahead of time with people who are going to help mentor at the contribution days, what we're going to work on during those contributions, what initiatives do you want to actively work on, finding people to help out with those initiatives. There's sponsor wrangling. Say you have a lot of connections in the community and a lot of agencies, camps need money to operate. Not only like for in-person events like securing venues, but sometimes we want to pay speakers, we want to hand out swag for free. You have MailChimp, all of those things, so having a coordinated person to like help out, finding sponsors. Accessibility, and this is twofold. There's accessibility on the digital front, making sure that everyone can access the digital assets and media and websites, but there's also accessibility for real life events, making sure that there's drinking fountains at the right height, doing a venue walkthrough, being sure that there's live captioning, so if you have a health background or a passion for inclusion, accessibility is a great role to take on as a camp volunteer and organizer. Diversity, inclusion, and equity, super important role. People want to go to a camp and they want to see a speaker page and a trainer page and an attendee page, and they want to see someone that looks like them on there. So if you want a more diverse attendee experience, you really need to start with those trainers and session speakers and organizers, because it's really important to reflect your values in that. A code of conduct. Everyone wants to feel safe at camp. So, signing up to be a code of conduct incident reporter or incident taker is a good role. And then of course, camps are fun. We want to be able to like network and have fun and hang out with each other. And we're always looking for people to come up with creative ideas, and this is a good role for people who like to socialize. What do you want to do? Finding venues around the camp location, to have a party or have a game night. It doesn't have to be a happy hour all the time. It can be board game night. It can be trips to the restaurants, where you coordinate mini lunch outings with folks. You can be creative with all of these roles. Okay, so promoting the platform. Promote Drupal initiative has one purpose. It's to create. Can you see my whole screen?
Yeah,
do you see?
I think you might need to go into the full screen mode.
Oops.
You got it.
Okay, and you don't see anything on top of it, right?
Correct.
Okay. You still don't see anything on top of it?
I don't see your address bar anymore.
But you don't see my notes?
No.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. I live rural. Promoting the platform is a very important part of Drupal. If people don't use our software, there's no Drupal to come from. And you definitely do not have to have a coder role or be a coder to help promote the platform. This is a great way for folks, your marketing people, you know, your sales people, your social media people in your agency, or if that's your passion of yours, is promoting the platform. And this initiative has really just one purpose, and it's to create business marketing materials to decision makers who choose to adopt Drupal for their businesses. And I have on here a couple of different ways that you can promote the product, and one of them being presentations. They have a slide deck ready to go for you. It's called the Drupal pitch deck. And it's really just about spreading the word about Drupal. Say you go to a tech conference that's pretty agnostic, you can give a presentation on Drupal, and stakeholders will go and you can and promote the software in that wider open source community. You can do it through social media. Drupal is on all of the things: Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, YouTube. So following them there will help you promote the platform, because you'll learn what's happening in real time. You know where Drupal is going. You know, keeping up with current events there. Photography, and this goes back to camp organization and volunteering as well. You know, people want to see the community in action. They want to see people participating. You know, having images, capturing folks, enjoying Drupal events, enjoying using the product, you know, enjoying giving presentation is super important. You know, images help with ROI when you do social media posts, you know, ROI being return on investment. People want to see images and they click on images, and having images for people to choose from, like when I'm building out a camp page, I go on Google and I'm looking for images. I want to see different images of different people, you know, participating. But just remember, if you use them, to be kind and remember the licensing and attribute them and stuff like that. Logos, all of the logos are bundled up. You know, it's really easy to find the logos for marketing. You know, there's all different kinds of creative assets with the Drupal icons and things like that. Case studies. People want to know how you're using Drupal. Other agencies or even developers want to see what extensions you're using, you know, and so those case studies really help with inclusion, because it kind of highlights all the different ways people are using the software, because it goes back to the diversity aspect. Is the more people share with what they do, the more diverse ideas everyone has. And you can contribute as a project lead. You can be a writer, you can be a designer, you can be a videographer, you can be a communicator, or really have any other marketing role to contribute back to promoting the platform. Translations and localizations. Drupal is global. And there's always a call for volunteers all over the world to help translate the pitch deck. You know, I'm going to use what we just talked about before. You know, there's that pitch deck that everyone can pick up, but it's not translated in every language. So this is a good way into talking about translations and localizations, because there's always a need for translations. Some of Drupal have incomplete versions of translations of text in core. And then some parts of the interface will show up in English, while others need corrections and improvements of the language. And I don't know about lately, but about a year ago, someone told me that no language has a complete set of translations for all the contributed modules, not even English, because, say someone wrote a module in Japanese and it's not translated into English. And there's different things that you can do to help with this. You can review a translation. And again, I want to stress out that you don't need to know code to be able to translate, because it's text-based. So you can review translations, you can update translations, and review new and updated translations that are done by new translators so they can be accepted into the localization systems. You can be a translation monitor, the person who sort of gives that final editorial go-ahead that the translation makes sense. And also you can review new and updated translations as this role, marking them as either approved or rejected, and then work with people who are doing those localizations. So there's a few different roles that you can do for localizations. Community initiatives. I'm going to talk about these official community initiatives, and then I'll talk more about some unofficial initiatives. But community initiatives that are official right now. Well, let's talk about what community initiatives are. Initiatives are groups of people that really just come together to work on particular areas of concern or interest. There's the Bug Smash initiative. This is the initiative to fix known bugs in Drupal core. And most of these initiatives have Slack channels that you can join, but I do have a link at the bottom that takes you to a centralized page for community initiatives where it has all of the links to the different initiatives. You can contribute to accessibility. Issues, accessibility issues are important for end users, site visitors, people who use screen readers, and also for people who are building the Drupal websites too. So there's accessibility on the client side, and there's accessibility on the user-facing side, and then accessibility for developers too. So there's a lot of different areas that you can contribute to accessibility. There's the initiative, the Drupal 8 user experience. They want to really improve the content creation and site builder tools for Drupal 8 and Drupal 9. And they do have a strategy, a UX strategy planned. There's the Drupal Open Curriculum initiative. This is the initiative to create an open curriculum for new developers to come into Drupal and then get them trained in all the different parts of Drupal, the various aspects of Drupal development. There's a documentation initiative. This is sort of an ongoing thing. This initiative will never go away. And really the mission of the documentation working group is to make sure that the Drupal project has really good tools and procedures in place for documentation. And again, we're going to be talking a little bit more about documentation at a future workshop, where we deep dive into like all the different contributor guides that you can contribute to, as well as like project code and project README documentation. There's the Drupal Ladder initiative. This is a great project. It's getting people, active users, ready to contribute to Drupal core. And it's a series of just sort of learning exercises, like learning sprints or issue sprints. And we're trying to get away from that word sprints, but they use it in their languaging. And this helps people onboard contributors, at Drupal user groups, meetups, and conferences. So now I want to talk about a couple, and by no means all of the initiatives, but a couple that I know a little bit more about, that I know that are actively seeking people to help with. So these are some of the unofficial initiatives. There's the Drupal Recording Initiative. Right now, Kevin he's not the only person recording sessions, but he is definitely the loudest and most prolific, and those are his words. He wants help. he doesn't want to go to every Drupal camp, but he wants every Drupal camp to be recorded, and so there's all different things that people can help with this. You don't have to go to a camp to participate, but if you are at a local camp, the initiative is looking for folks to help with outreach, bring new people onto the project, edit videos, once the videos are captured, we need, the beginning and the end clipped off. And that means, downloading them on your local machine, getting a little piece of software, and then, making sure that you clip all that erroneous content off the ends. Provide camp support if you're already going to a camp, making sure that people push the red button before they start speaking. There's marketing the initiative. There's documenting the initiative. Super important. That way other people can pick up at the camp and all the documentation is ready for them. And then also, we want the content to be discoverable. One of the great things that came out of this initiative a couple years ago was the equivalent of WordPress TV. We now have Drupal TV. We didn't have that before. Drupal TV curates all the playlists, so people can find the content. But I talked with Kevin yesterday about some of the things I could mention about what some of the goals in the next couple years are for this initiative. And he just doesn't have the bandwidth himself, but he came up with a couple of different ways that people could contribute, or some ideas of the roadmap, I guess is a better word for it. He's talking about like adding tags to the videos so they're easier to search, adding captioning for accessibility, going back and editing the captioning and making sure that the content is correct. Promoting local events as well as the Drupal project. And then he also wants to be able to curate and annotate different versions of talks, because some people give the same talk at a couple of different camps. So it sort of clutters up that Drupal TV or the playlist. So if there's a way that we would know that it's a version of the same talk, or even unpublish or unpublish some of the largely repetitive versions of those talks. So lots of different ways that you can help out with the Drupal recording initiative. There's the Drupal diversity and inclusion team. Off of their website, they say that, I'm going to read some of that because I work with them a little bit, but I'm not in a leadership position. The group welcomes everybody, all different types of contributors. You can be, project support staff. You can be a programmer, really any role, any level of skill, mostly like if you're just involved in the community, there's a place for you to get involved with this initiative. They have a Slack channel in Drupal Slack, diversity-inclusion Drupal Slack. They meet every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and it's async, so you can come in at any time, and the discussion is threaded. But some of the things that are listed on their website that the initiatives they have going on in their project is they have a resource library. They created a place that highlighted some useful information, and they're always open for people contributing. You read a great article, you went to a great talk, you want to highlight that, submit it to them and they'll add it to the resource list. They have a contrib team. They work on, it's a group that does code-based contributions, and they help underrepresented groups help work on the Drupal project. And they have a separate Slack channel, DDI-contrib-team in the Drupal Slack space. They have a career initiative. They want a space for the community. They provide a space in the community to post jobs. In their weekly meetings, they have a thread for jobs and announcements, call for papers, camps and conferences that are coming up, and helping people identify where they can, what companies, are looking for more diverse employees and managers and that kind of thing. They have a Slack channel for session help, which is really helpful. It's a safe place where you can ask for advice. Like if you have a pitch you want to give to a camp, but you're not quite sure if or maybe English isn't your first language and you want some help with a grammar check. You want to make sure people would be interested in it. They have a Slack space where you can, talk and work out session ideas. And then there's the Drupal Diversity Speaker Initiative. This is a training, and I think I'm going to talk about this later. If not, after the slide deck, we'll talk about it a little bit more. It provides trainings on all the different aspects of what it takes to be a speaker at camps and meetups. It talks about brainstorming for an idea, finding a topic, how to write a pitch, how to write a bio, how to present online, and how to overcome imposter syndrome, all different types of things, because I talked a lot about, sharing your knowledge, but some people aren't comfortable with that. They really want to talk, but there's this one hurdle they just can't quite get over. These speaker workshops are great. Safe places to explore different topics and ideas, and be open about what you would like to hear. And it's pragmatic too, working through it together as a group. The community working group, the CWG, they have 2 areas of focus, and I believe we're kind of looking for new contributors here. There's the conflict resolution and code of conduct enforcement team. They really deal with that code, the conflict resolution part of it, and some of the things that they've typically worked on in the past is mediation. Someone has a conflict and it can't be resolved between the individuals. So the CWG conflict resolution team will help with some mediation, provide recommendations, that kind of thing. They help with facilitation and documentation. They want Drupal as a whole to be a safe and inclusive space. So they work on the code of conduct and related documentation and all the resolution processes, and they make these public for everybody. They help with arbitration. The CWG has empowerment to enforce recommendations, and then provide courses of actions to individuals. They help with the escalation of disciplinary actions within the community. They help people with educational resources, providing that support. And they really their whole goal is to really have escalation alternatives. They don't want things to get bad, so they provide a lot of information. The second part of the community working group team, and I work with this team, is the community health and development team, and we're actively looking for contributors for this team. And there's a couple of things that we actively focus on in this team. We've been working on advice and consultation. We've been providing resources for the Drupal community on community health, especially during these pandemic times. We've been raising awareness of all the resources. We've been writing blog articles and just promoting engagement on issues that impact the whole community. And then some of the community initiatives that we're working on is just generally to promote the health of the Drupal community and prevent conflict, burnout, and conflict and burnout. And one of the things we're actively working on are these things called community nudges, where we're working on education on the way people use their language and how we can help people communicate better in the issue queue and in Drupal Slack with these series of nudges, and what we're working on is some languaging, educating people around, ableist language or racist language or gatekeeping knowledge language. And that's a pretty hardy initiative that we're actively working on people to help us review the language that we're going to be using for these nudges. And then some ideas beyond these initiatives. And there is a Drupal issue queue project issues / ideas. And there's a whole list of things that people have come up with, but they not quite feature requests, but kind of roadmap stuff. So you can look through that and get some ideas. They're talking about a privacy initiative. How can Drupal be more private and help secure everyone's privacy online? What can we do? Gutenberg, it's a block editor that's embraced in other open source communities. We're looking to have that be in core, maybe, CLI, Composer, and this issue queue, just to kind of give you an idea of its merit, is Olivera started as just an idea in this issue queue, and now it's in core. So looking at these ideas and collaborating with others in this issue queue is a really great idea to start like thinking about what's next, what's exciting, or say there's something that you think is missing in the community. Submitting an issue in that queue can help jumpstart a conversation. And then as far as like where your path is in contributions, I just want to emphasize a couple of things. Utilize your skill set. And I'm going to use myself as an example because I know me the best. Being the hospice nurse by trade, so accessibility is a skill set I have, recognizing what's not accessible for folks. I'm a teacher, so providing documentation, technical writing is my skill set. So that's a way I got involved. And then follow your interests, say, you really like going to camps, find something to do at those camps. And then follow your passions, because contributing to Drupal is so much fun, especially when it's something that you're like totally excited about. And then most importantly, I think what we need to emphasize about giving back to Drupal is to have fun, meet people, or if meeting people isn't your gig, just hanging out in the issue queue and taking kind of a backseat approach, but have fun with whatever you're doing. It's okay to step away from something, and start something else, but if you follow your interests, you follow your passions, you follow your skill set, having fun just becomes natural with that. And so that's the end of like the curated part. And I went kind of long, sorry about that. But I'm open for discussion. And then I'm Volkswagen Chick across all of the medias and at all the things. So if you ever want to reach out to me, Volkswagen is spelled with an E-N. But yeah, that's sort of the highlights of everything. And then at the back of the slide deck, I have the links organized, which makes it really easy. So you can go to all the different specific links and kind of explore. And I really invite folks to go to one of these links and play bumper cars, where there's a link on a page and there's that link that interests you. Will follow that one, and you never know where you're going to end up on Drupal.org. So thank you.
Thank you so much for giving us that much information, Amy June. I did post the document in our chat here in the Zoom session that also has that list of links in there for people to hop into. We can take questions if there are questions. If not, we can follow up after the call.
I don't know if Tara wants to participate, but I know Tara's an active leader in the Drupal inclusion group, and you know what I mean, like diversity inclusion group. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about some of those initiatives where.
Totally. Yeah, thanks for including us. So we do have weekly meetings that people get credit for, and that is both sort of a social time to meet people in the community. I know for myself, joining Drupal Diversity and Inclusion, like before I was ever in a leadership role, was probably the first time in the Drupal community that I like really felt like I had a group of people, because I always worked in these really small companies and stuff, so I didn't have a lot of colleagues. So that was really fun. And so we have these meetings where there's some social time, but then there's also different initiatives. Right now, we're kind of tossing around the idea of running a camp, like a virtual camp, probably, obviously, that features marginalized voices as the speakers. So it kind of crosses over on some of the event organizers, working group type stuff, and the diversity stuff. So if folks want to get involved with that, we're definitely looking for organizers there. We also do collaboratively written blog posts on inclusion topics. So if you're a writer, we basically in the issue queue have a topic And then we spin up a Google Doc, we all write it together, and then everyone who wrote on the post gets Drupal.org credit as well. It's also a way that we can keep revising posts. So if you look on our blog, which is at drupaldiversity.com, and you think, oh, I have something to contribute to this topic, you can actually find the issue queue link there and make your contributions as well. So yeah, I'd love to see new people there for sure.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but
It's fine. I'm always happy to talk about diversity and inclusion.
Tara is always prepared.
Well, it's so important to all the different parts of Drupal. You know, I almost feel like I should have said something first about that, because again, those voices, having everyone's voices makes our project like super strong, you know, and that's why I like doing these workshops for the non-coder too, because we use the software, we go to camps in a different way than other folks. Like if there's just a code camp, like, but if I'm an active voice and I can pick a session or have some input on what information is delivered, it actually adds to the value of the camp, because now more people will come to your camp, you know, more people to hang out with and more people to bounce the ideas off of. So yeah, voices are important.
Totally.
We don't have any questions waiting in the chat. I'm not hearing a ton verbal questions. We can probably sign off for this one. Just a few reminders. We do have one more session with Amy June scheduled today. In about an hour and 10 minutes from now, we're going to be talking about Issue Q 101 for Drupal. And that's from 11 to 12 Pacific today, the 4th. And then on Monday, the 7th, we have 2 upcoming sessions with Amy June that are WordPress focused. They are community contributions at 12 Pacific, and then Track Q 101 at 2 Pacific. All of those links are on the Pantheon community forum as well. So if you forget and you need to find that link or that time again, that is available to you. Any other comments or thoughts, Amy June?
I do want to, I'm not sure the date of the documentation presentation, but say you're on the fence about the code contributions, the documentation is a great way to get introduced to code contributions, because it lapses 2 different things. There's text-based documentation and then there's code-based documentation. And so that's how I started doing the code contributions, is participating in text-based code contributions like READMEs or UIs and stuff like that. So that's going to be an exciting kind of bridge over. And documentation is super important because, again, everyone's voice is important, because we don't know how each other use the software. And if you're a beginner and you can't figure out the documentation, that means something is missing. So documentation is a great way to kind of get that little hump over the start into the code contributions too. So.
Yes, that particular documentation workshop is coming up on the 15th at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time. Everyone, enjoy your hour, and hopefully we'll see much of you back for the next session.
Thanks, Katie.